Agora sim, daremos início à sessão O Big Data como estratégia de ganho de novos mercados. Para debater o tema, convidamos ao palco Ailtom Barberino, do Nascimento, Filho, vice-presidente do Grupo Stefanini, Bogdan Vernescu, vice-reitor de Pesquisa do Instituto Politécnico de Worcester, Elizabeth Stroble, presidente da Universidade de Webster, e Kearns, diretor do Argonne National Laboratory. O moderador será Marco Laurea, vice-presidente de Soluções e Big Data da IBM América Latina. E é com ele que iniciamos este debate. Boa tarde, Rodrigo. Seja bem-vindo aqui ao palco também.
Boa tarde, eu sou Marco Laurea, como foi apresentado. Eu trabalho na IBM. Nos últimos 10 anos, eu trabalhei com Analytics e com Big Data. Depois eu vou chavear para inglês, para facilitar o entendimento dos demais apresentadores. Como eu comentei, há 10 anos eu trabalho com Analytics e Big Data, e eu não vou falar, mais uma vez, por que usar Analytics, usar Big Data, representa uma vantagem competitiva para as empresas. Esse era um discurso que a gente fazia 7 anos atrás, 8 anos atrás, e tem muitas pesquisas que demonstram isso. Então, já faz, acho que, mais de 5 anos que todos estão convencidos disso. E, ao invés disso, eu gostaria de falar um pouco quais são os obstáculos, por que é importante Analytics, Big Data, como a gente chegou onde está, um pouquinho dos obstáculos que a gente tem hoje, e falar um pouquinho de Machine Learning, como eu acho que isso complementa Analytics e Big Data. Tá? É inegável a explosão de dados que a gente vive hoje. Dados gerados aí por todos os tipos de fonte. Então, nós temos o fenômeno das social media, né? Produz uma quantidade de dados enorme, as redes sociais, pessoas tiram fotos, postam em tempo real, no LinkedIn, no Twitter, no Facebook. Isso gera uma quantidade enorme de dados, uma oportunidade de você fazer um data mining. Também, cada um tem pelo menos um celular, às vezes mais de um, e esses celulares, eles são uma fonte também geradora de dados. Todo celular tem um GPS, todo celular tem uma máquina fotográfica, está conectado nas redes sociais via internet. Então, eu diria que esses dois fenômenos, né, da internet das coisas e das redes sociais, fizeram com que tivéssemos uma explosão ainda maior na quantidade de dados que são produzidos, né? Adicionalmente, o custo de processar esses dados barateou muito. Tem a lei de Moore, storage ficou mais barato, os CPUs ficaram mais baratos, apareceram novas tecnologias aí como Apache, Hadoop. Então, processar os dados, fazer um BI, fazer um Business Analytics, hoje é uma realidade não só viável, mas eu diria economicamente é relativamente fácil de justificar. Então, eu acho que a combinação da explosão dos dados com essa tecnologia acessível fez com que, nos últimos anos, se popularizasse aí o que foi uma evolução do BI para um Business Analytics. As empresas pararam de perguntar um pouco o que aconteceu, para entender um pouco por que aquilo aconteceu, usar ferramentas estatísticas aí para você fazer previsões do futuro, fazer simulações de cenário. Então, nós evoluímos do ponto de vista de Analytics ou de BI para cenários um pouco de entender o passado, para cenários onde você prevê o futuro, onde você simula, desenvolve cenários para ver o que poderia acontecer. Surgiram tecnologias novas, como a possibilidade de fazer isso em tempo real, então, Streaming Analytics. Surgiram dashboards que permitem, mesmo uma pessoa que não tem uma formação, ela conseguir interpretar os dados. Está cada vez mais sofisticados os programas para representação visual desses dados. Então, com isso, você consegue levar Analytics a um grupo maior de pessoas e ferramentas também que tornam mais fácil essa análise de dados, a criação de modelos e tal. Então, eu diria que passou por uma democratização também de Analytics e de Big Data. E nos 2 últimos anos, como eu comentei, além do grupo de Analytics e Big Data, eu sou responsável pelo grupo de Watson, são as tecnologias associadas a Machine Learning e Artificial Intelligence. E aí eu acho que existe uma complementariedade grande entre as duas coisas. E o Machine Learning te permite fazer sentido de coisas, de dados não estruturados que nós não tínhamos tecnologia para fazer. Então, coisas como speech to text, você consegue converter uma gravação em texto, e depois você pode fazer um data mining, pode fazer uma analytics em cima dessa informação. Com isso, você pode avaliar um call center, você pode avaliar gravações e conseguir fazer uma analytics em cima disso. Tá? Ferramentas como, por exemplo, de reconhecimento de imagem ou vídeo analytics. Então, você pode fazer analytics em cima de imagens. Você pode reconhecer fotos, você pode reconhecer padrões, pode reconhecer sentimentos nas fotos, é possível. E tem 3 categorias que me chamam a atenção, que têm tido uma demanda grande. Uma de reconhecimento de personalidade, e tentar adequar produtos à personalidade do usuário, por exemplo. Então, existe uma API de Machine Learning chamada Personality Insight, que eles permite avaliar a personalidade das pessoas e fazer uma oferta customizada para isso. E coisas como, por exemplo, Tone Analyzer, é uma análise do tom de voz, ou Sentiment Analysis, é uma análise do sentimento que está por trás de alguma coisa escrita. Tá? Então, só para dar alguns exemplos, imagina que você pode ler milhares de documentos, reportes de clientes, pode fazer isso em tempo real, está acompanhando social media, e não só você está entendendo aquilo, mas você está categorizando e classificando em relação ao sentimento que está por trás de cada uma dessas experiências. Tá? Há 2, 3 anos atrás, a gente até tinha uma análise de sentimento para detectar se era positivo ou negativo, baseado num tweet, baseado num comentário de Facebook, mas é muito inferior ao que nós temos de ferramenta hoje para poder detectar qual é a emoção que está por trás, qual é o sentimento que está por trás daquilo. É um sentimento de algo agradável, é desagradável, se é desagradável, por quê? Então, eu acho que é um desses casos que complementa muito a análise que a gente conseguia fazer com Big Data. Tem outras ferramentas, o Tone Analyzer, por exemplo, avalia o tom de voz e consegue detectar se a pessoa está nervosa, se está ansiosa, se está tensa, se está agressiva, baseado no tom de voz. Então, você poderia, por exemplo, ter um supervisor de um call center eletrônico, ele está fazendo transcrição em tempo real dessas conversas e ele está avaliando para ver se precisa tomar alguma iniciativa, transferir essa ligação para alguma pessoa mais especializada, ou seja, ele está monitorando em tempo real qual é o sentimento que está se passando nessa gravação. Então, sob esse aspecto, quando eu olho hoje as ferramentas de Machine Learning, eu acho que elas permitem uma sofisticação daquilo que a gente fazia antes com Big Data e complementa muito, aumenta muito o escopo do que dá para se fazer. Tá? Quais são os principais obstáculos que eu vejo hoje? Tá? Eu acho que existe um obstáculo cultural ainda, existe um aspecto de engajamento, de cultura, existe um ponto ainda a ser trabalhado em determinadas empresas, existe um aspecto de skill, de formação de recursos em algumas dessas áreas, principalmente as mais novas, pessoas com conhecimento de machine learning, de inteligência artificial, data scientists, ainda são alguns skills que são difíceis de conseguir. E eu diria que tem um desafio de governança de dados, que é um desafio que não é menos importante, e às vezes isso é relegado para um segundo plano. Não adianta fazer analytics ou desenvolver um sistema de Big Data se você não tem um mecanismo de data governance, se você não garante a qualidade de dados. Então, esse é um aspecto extremamente importante quando a gente fala de Big Data. Tá? Então, eu acho que isso faz uma introdução para o painel. Aqui nós temos pessoas, nós vamos ter a chance de explorar aspectos diversos, pessoas do meio acadêmico, um laboratório de energia, da Stefanini. Então, nós vamos ter a chance de explorar esse tema sobre diversas óticas. Tá? Eu gostaria de passar um pouco para que eles se apresentassem, falassem um pouquinho. Talvez começar, Elizabeth, se me permite. I'll switch to English to allow them to follow up on the discussion. As I was mentioning, it's always a challenge if I do everything in English or a piece in Portuguese and a piece in English. But they are going to be able to cover what I said, exploring different aspects of it. So I would like to ask first Elizabeth to tell a bit of her background, the work that she is doing, and then we can go to the other participants, and at the end we can do a debate. Elizabeth, please.
Well, thank you. I look forward to being part of this conversation with my good colleagues, and it's been a wonderful experience to be here in Brazil for my first time and to learn more about the challenges that we share as a worldwide community. I'm the president of Webster University. Webster University is a nonprofit university with its home campus in St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States. But we serve 16,000 students, both in person and in wonderfully robust online programs in Europe, Asia, Africa, and truly anywhere that students can take an online course. So I am eager to talk more about the kinds of programs that we offer for those who work in big data, including cybersecurity, because at Webster University, we always seek to meet a need. And I would be very eager to find great partners here in Brazil so that we could help Brazil meet its big data and cybersecurity needs. I'm eager to welcome students, and I'm eager to establish a campus either in partnership or alone here in Brazil because I am so encouraged by the enthusiasm and the opportunity here. So my focus as a person whose background is in the humanities and education is on those who use technology whose background is not technical in nature. I have done quite a bit of research about this, how writers use technology, how teachers use technology, how individuals on university campuses, including our own students, use technology, and how their lack of familiarity with data integrity issues create the very vulnerabilities that cause us to not meet the potential of big data. And we certainly know that the potential has not been realized yet. The potential of big data to be able to give us real-time decision-making capability, to understand customers' or clients' behaviors, to be able to avert damage from cyber threats, has not been realized, and I think there are several important reasons, and one of those is simply education and talent. and the need for more cyber professionals. That need is great worldwide, and it's why we've established programs that include an undergraduate degree, a master's degree, and a certificate in cyber threat detection. It's why we formed a cyber research laboratory, and we have our own private cloud laboratory where we can ourselves test penetrations and find ways to defy those. And it's why we've created an industry collaboration that's housed at the Kennedy Space Center and in partnership with Sandia Laboratories to find ways that we can share best practices across industry and government and academia, because the more we share about how to manage the integrity of data, the more successful we will be in being the innovators in big data usage, as opposed to those who would want to thwart and compromise our data. So those are the interests that I have in talking more as we further today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Then maybe Ailtom can comment from a different perspective, being one of the companies in Brazil that have experience not only with big data, but also machine learning. Can you talk a bit about what we do and the work from Stefanini?
So, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation, opportunity to be here with all of you. So, before to start, just to say a little bit about myself. So, I am an economist, and with a master in corporate finance. But I started my career in Itaú 37 years ago, so it was in 1980. So working with MIS. So my entire life, I worked with management information systems. So now we are in this new age of technology. Today I work for Stefanini. I am working in Stefanini since 2001. And so this is a very interesting moment. Stefanini is in 41 countries today. We employ almost 24,000 people. And we have many different services. But talking about this digital transformation age, and especially about big data, which is, without this, would be impossible to move to these digital transformation services. We have done many different projects. We have a company, it's called the IHM, which is focused on Industry 4.0. And the Industry 4.0, we apply this kind of techniques, big data, analytics, Internet of Things, a lot. So in order to make these projects and to transform the today business and the future business, so we need to transform, to not only transform the technology, but change our mindset. So when we go today to analyze new markets, we are not thinking about a physical market anymore. We are thinking about how to integrate the business chain, how to integrate cultures, how to integrate processes, everything in a digital way. So I'm talking about digital services and digital manufacturing. So collecting all informations that we never had before to understand how those business works, how a machine works. Today, you can see many different products or big machines like an airplane working in the air, sending information all the time to the base in order to enabling engineers to understand how that machine works. So projects like that, it's come up to our reality today and make us to understand new informations that we never had before. So today in the market, we can work with different technologies applying to agriculture, to health, to machines. We are doing that. Today you have your applications in your mobile, but in some years, these applications will not there anymore. You'll be solving problems, talking to your machine directly, like with solutions supporting you, like cognitive solutions, like Watson and other solutions that makes your machine talk, so supporting you to receive a new service or a new product in your mobile or in your life. So this is how we, or with what we are working today. So big data for us is the way to understand how this world works and what kind of services will be developed after this. Just giving some information. Based on research made last year, we have today $500 billion in new products and services developed every year. So all these products and services has been developed based on the information, the new information that has been generated through these big data and analytic solutions. We are understanding more or using these informations to deliver new services or new support to our customers. For example, in health, we can orient our people, we can orient patients and how to behave in order to get more health, in order to treat their body or their current problems if they have. So we are teaching people to avoid new diseases. We are teaching people to be healthy. So using those information you never had before. So this is what big data and solutions like analytics enable companies like Stefanini or other companies, IBM, to develop new solutions that can deliver new services that you can't imagine now. So the services or products will be developing in the future, we cannot imagine it right now. So like Peter said this morning in his fantastic speech, so who can foresee the next 5 years? Nobody can do it. Nobody can imagine what we're going to have or will have in these next 5 years. So this is what we are generating, analyzing data or getting knowledge we never had before. So, and we are involved in many projects in different areas. Just to finalize, we created labs around the world. We have a lab in Singapore dedicated to develop solutions based on analytics and also big data. And we have a gap today in our market. We need to train more data scientists here in Brazil. We are getting much of those resources outside Brazil, in Singapore, in Romania, where we have another lab, in Richmond, Virginia, where we have another lab. So we are getting data science from this market. So we need to form, we need to educate more data science here in Brazil.
Thank you, Ailtom. I think it's an important point of view. It's again highlighting the importance of skills and all the services we have associated with all this technology, either analytics, big data, machine learning, and the need to use this for a specific industry. I think it's a very interesting perspective. I would like to invite Paul to also talk about his background and his experience with technology. Please, Paul.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a real treat for me to be here as well today. I've really learned a great deal and have drawn a great deal of inspiration from the interaction and the conversations that we've had throughout the day. So I'm Paul Kearns. I'm the interim director of Argonne National Laboratory. Argonne is one of the U.S. Department of Energy's national laboratories. We are a research powerhouse, and we're really focused on three primary objectives. One is discovery science, second is development of energy technologies, and the third is operating some of the world's largest scientific user facilities. Think light sources, think leadership computing facilities as well. The national laboratories as a whole work with some of the largest data sets around, some of the biggest data sets, if you will, around. Really generated by the great research we do, the scientific instrumentations that we operate, instruments that we operate for our own research activities, but also for industry and academia, and also our advanced leadership computing facilities. Here in Brazil, the Cirrus light source is under construction in Campinas, which is all about X-ray imaging. I think discovery of new drugs, think understanding materials, think understanding defects in materials, think really fantastic new commercial products that come from discovery of those materials as well, really driving innovation in that way. The Cirrus light source, which is under construction, will be a world-class facility when it's commissioned. At Argonne, we have a sister facility, if you will, we call the Advanced Photon Source. It really is a powerhouse in terms of the research we do. Again, for academia and industry. One set of experiments from Argonne, from the Advanced Photon Source will generate 200 terabytes of data, just a remarkable amount of information from an experiment. If you think of 200 terabytes in terms of your music playlist, that's probably on your iPod, about a 2 years worth of listening, if you will, to music. Looking beyond that, another great example of large data sets we work with is really in climate research. It is one of the first disciplines expected to generate an exabyte of data. That exabyte would equate to about a 2 million year playlist on your iPod, very significant in that regard. Another recent challenge across the world is associated with medical imaging, mapping the human brain, if you will. Great efforts underway across the world. If we're successful, or when we're successful, let me say it that way, we'll have generated a zettabyte of data, which is a 2 billion year playlist, if you will, just an enormous amount of data in terms of us to understand and really learn from it in a very significant way to really improve, if you will, life for us all here on Earth. Of course, when we're working with these large data sets, the national laboratories face challenges like many others, and those challenges include accessing data from multiple sources. We've talked a little bit about that on the panel already today. And of course, data from numerous platforms. Many times we try to integrate data across various scientific instruments, if you will, and from different locations as well. Really analyzing that data in an efficient way is a big challenge for us, doing it timely and cost effectively. And then also visualizing the data to really allow us to understand what it is that it's telling us. There's significant risk as well associated with use of big data. Think privacy, think security, think intellectual property rights, think how we might limit our liability if there were to be a loss of data is certainly a concern for us. The U.S. national laboratories have been on the forefront of computing advances for some time. Since the 1950s, we've had high-performance computing at Argonne National Laboratory, modeled after early work by von Neumann at the Advanced Institute in New Jersey, if you will. The very first machine at Argonne was deployed in the 1950s, followed by machines at Los Alamos and Oak Ridge. Today, the U.S. national laboratories, many of them have petascale, if you will, size machines. We have on the machine room at Argonne what we call Mira. It's about 10 petaflops. It's actually an IBM machine, so I'm proud to, if you will, offer a compliment to Marco and IBM for their great accomplishments. We're on the road to what we call exascale, which is 10 to the 18th operations per second in the U.S. We hope to intend to deploy, I should say, the first exascale machine at Argonne in 2021. That machine is a bit challenging for us in terms of architecture because of the power required to actually process information that quickly, and also wanting to do as much as we can in terms of gaining benefits from modeling and simulation, machine learning, and data analytics. So a small sample of what we do in the U.S. at the national laboratories and at Argonne. So thank you.
Thank you. Another interesting perspective, a different perspective on the same subject, and later we can explore the demands of energy that all the systems, as we increase the storage, the computing capacity, all the challenges we have around this topic, and then how technology may help us solve some of the challenges. But thank you. The last, I would like to ask Mr. Bogdan to talk a bit about his background and the experience that they are doing. Mr. Bogdan, please.
It's a pleasure to be in Sao Paulo, and it's a great pleasure to address this audience. I am the Vice Provost for Research at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, which is in Worcester, Massachusetts, 40 miles west of Boston. We have been around for 151 years. We were founded in 1865, by two industrialists who realized at the time of the Industrial Revolution in Massachusetts, that they needed to have the workforce to work for their companies. And two of them put together the money and built two buildings. One was the classroom building for the courses, and the other one was the shop building where they had the labs, which were at the height of that technology at that time in 1865. And so our logo has always been theory and practice. So we've always combined the classroom work with the very practical work. So fast forwarding to the late 1960s, WPI decided to reinvent itself. And in 71, the faculty at WPI introduced what they call the WPI plan. And to just give you a few examples of how innovative this university was at that time, so they were training at that time engineers. And they said, well, engineers, first of all, they don't always know how to write. So we really need to force these students to take humanities and arts courses and write something out of 5 courses, then write a paper. Then engineers don't really understand how their work influences society. So they should have a project equivalent to 3 courses, so a significant amount of work, that connects technology to society. So in their 3rd year in the undergraduate program, all our students have this project that connects technology to society. And in fact, we have more than 40 project centers around the world where we send students and faculty to embed in the local communities, nonprofits, government, and companies to work with the locals and understand the culture from Panama to Namibia to South Africa to London to Bangkok to Singapore. We have project centers all around the world and, of course, project centers in the US. And then in the senior year and the 4th year, students have to do a project, all of them. So a lot of universities nowadays do project-based learning, and they have a select group of students who do projects. We have all our students doing projects. We have 4,500 undergraduates and 1,500 graduate students. Everybody does projects, and the projects are, most of the time, team projects. So students learn how to work with others, which is not always happening in universities. They also learn how to work with others who do not have the same majors as they have. So they know how to explain their work in someone else's language. They also learn how to present to companies, because most of these projects are sponsored by industry. And so they have to go to companies and make presentations and so on. So we are a very innovative project-based learning university. We were awarded less than a year ago by the Wall Street Journal. We were named #1 as faculty who best combine research and teaching. We were also awarded last year by the National Academy of Engineering the Bernard Gordon Prize for Innovation in Engineering and Technology Education. So this is where I work, WPI. If you want to send your students in an innovative place, please do that. I'm a mathematician, I'm an applied mathematician. I started actually 20 years ago a Center for Industrial Mathematics and Statistics, where we went out. Mathematicians usually don't do that, but we went out to companies and we asked them, what's your problem? And let's figure out if we can help you. So we worked with insurance companies, with financial companies, with manufacturing industry. Everybody has data. We worked on all sorts of data. I have lots of stories about how people use data or how people don't understand how to use data. Now I'm the Vice Provost for Research, so I'm in charge of a lot of the research that is going on at WPI, helping the research enterprise. A few years back, we also decided at WPI that departments are not necessarily relevant and they are kind of an administrative way of doing things, but not necessarily relevant for the goals and the impact that the university wants to have. And so we are developing programs that are not in departments, they're in between departments, because that's where the interesting science and research goes on, not within the departments, which, by the way, most of the departments, the idea of departments is a couple of hundred years old. So we started a data sciences program that was started by the computer science department, the math department, and the School of Business, with the idea that if you want to deal with big data, you have to understand how to work with computers, you have to understand databases, you have to have the skills to analyze the databases. You need also the mathematics and the statistics to be able to do that, so that's where computer science and math comes. And then the other piece that you really need to understand is the business, because if you don't understand the business, no matter how you look at the data, you don't know what to do with it. So people who are working, the data scientists that we want to create are the data scientists who understand the business so that they can ask the right questions, so they can analyze the data in the right way. So we started this program, it is almost 5 years ago. We started from 4 students a year. Now we have 70 students coming in the fall. It's master's and PhD. We also are starting a minor for students because we also don't want to put this into an undergraduate degree. We want to have students attracted from various degrees, from math, from computer science, from business, who come to data sciences with different interests so that they learn what they lack in the program. And so that's in a nutshell what we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Bogdan. And I think, again, we touched on the subject of skills and the need for skills. And maybe this is a good topic for us to start kind of the debate. It was a common theme across the 4 speakers. So maybe Elizabeth could talk about the human element on this equation and how do you see skills. We also talk about security, cybersecurity, and the need for security. So if you can comment a bit on this, Elizabeth.
Well, I want to pick up on what you said, which was that the intersection between those who are the data users and the decision makers and those who are actually the architects of how the data are organized is really very, very important. Another aspect that I have seen in the past 2 to 3 years, particularly as U.S. consumers have been the victims of data compromises and data breaches repeatedly, whether it was financial institutions, educational institutions, retailers, online retailers, as well as in person, was the need for communication. And I suspect that this is a part of a program that is yet to be refined and developed, but I see it very much as a skill set. Communication to those who are using data and making their data available around what it is you can do to protect your vulnerabilities. Certainly on a university campus with tens of thousands of students and many employees, trying to help through a communications and education program, people to understand how they create vulnerabilities to the system just by using their own devices in inappropriate ways or vulnerable ways, risky ways, is part of it. But once the threat has happened and data have been compromised or there has been a breach of some type, then how one communicates about that to those whose data may have become available to unauthorized sources is critically important. And I don't see that businesses in the United States have been very effective in that kind of communication. So I see that engaging the public and users in broad-based ways is really important to offset and prevent threats to data integrity, as well as to help people understand what you do and what happened when it inevitably happens, because it is inevitable. In every one of our organizations, we're constantly having outside organizations or even those inside the organization cause vulnerabilities and data breaches. One hopes that you identify them before they're serious, but being able to find ways that you communicate about how to deal with this is an important skill set for leaders, as well as for those who work at many levels of the organization, in my opinion. So it's not just a technical set of skills that's needed, it's a leadership set of skills, and it's a set of skills around how do you compel and convince and persuade and influence people to actually use data to base their decisions. Because even with effective data that has been queried and organized in ways that actually answer the questions the organization most desires answers to, there will be leaders in every organization who will prefer to use their own instincts and ignore the data, or actually choose to say, I don't accept what the data tell me, I'm going with my own judgment on this. And that's a human user instinct, and we see it in our human behavior all the time, don't we? The choices we make in what we eat, what we drink, how we drive, all those kinds of things. The human element is not to be ignored.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Maybe we can ask Ailtom his perspective, being in Brazil, on the same topic, skills. We know there is a shortage of some of these technical skills. We talked about the need for data scientists, specialists in statistics, in big data, machine learning. So maybe you can comment, being here in Brazil, and how do you see the same problem? Maybe also some ways that Stefanini is working to help deal with this demand.
Yes, I think first we need to touch base in order to put some examples about big data and analytics, and then explore how the solutions works. So in the past, we used to say that the data were there in the historical database, and we analyzed that. We created business dimensions in order to analyze how people use it to buy or to behave themselves. But today, after young generation, Z generation that is now among us, the history is completely different. So the data is outside your companies, outside the banks, outside, and you need to collect those data and correlate those data in order to understand the next movements. So, we need to collect those data online in real time. An example about an application that we have done is for insurance. So, in the insurance side, we have an application. Today, we finished this project. We developed a 100% digital insurance company, 100%. We don't have any traditional product or service inside of this insurance company. So we connect a device in the car, so we know how the driver drives, how his behavior, if he's aggressive or a calm driver, so we know everything. However, we have to collaborate more with him. So, for example, when he's parking his car in a region, and now talking about Brazil, talking about São Paulo, Rio, etc., if this guy is parking his car in certain street, we analyze immediately, the systems analyze immediately that street, and realize that, based on statistical data, that 50% of cars stolen in that region were in that street. We sent immediately a message to his mobile and say, guy, you know that we suggest you to park your car in a parking lot right now, and we have a parking lot nearby, 100 meters ahead, with 30% of discount if you park your car there. So if this guy or other guy park his car in January in a kind of regions with a big possibility of a float there, we also advise him, this street, you are in risk to lose your car because it's used to have floats this. And this afternoon will rain. So this is what the forecast is saying. This afternoon we'll have a strong rain here. So this is the kind of new collaboration word that we can, or solutions that we can apply and interact more with users. So we are doing this right now. And for example, in agriculture, we have a project where you put sensors in the plantation, and you analyze through scanners if that plant is growing in the same level of growth. If not, we analyze the region where a kind of plant is growing more than another region. We analyze that part, the portion of the land, of the field, and say, okay, in this portion of the field, we have these and these, this kind of humidity, this kind of insumes, and we leverage the other part of the field in order to have the plantation growing at the same level. So with this, we have 30% in terms of good results in that plantation. So data is something that can change dramatically the world and how to do business, how to help people to behave. But this is also a big danger because it's generating a new door to bad guys. So people today are much more exposure because they are changing their information with others. They are changing information through social networks, etc. And we have those bad guys always looking at opportunities or possibilities to invade and take this information. So security now, we are talking about cyber possibilities of cyber attacks in the entire world, cyber attacks going through to stop public services, etc. So your business are much more exposure now than in the past. So other solutions is coming in order to protect that. So in our company, we made a joint venture with a very powerful company, security company called Rafael, is a company from Israel, in order to develop a new cybersecurity to protect the environment. And we created, it's called the CyberDome. It's coming from Iron Dome. And this is new solutions that is necessary in order to protect the environment, not your company itself, but the total environment around. Because your business and your customers is today integrated in this big data scenario, right? So that's what we are doing here in Brazil right now.
Marco, may I add a few comments? I think in picking up on the theme of cybersecurity, I think all of us realize today it's important we start education early. Certainly, you know, I have a grandson who's 12 years old. He's got an iPhone. You know, he's very active. He's certainly out there sharing his information rather freely, concerning to his parents as well as to me. He doesn't know any limits, so he really needs to be taught that, and it's an important reminder that we all need to start early. I will say that Argonne is fortunate in that our sponsor, Department of Energy, has what we call a cyber competition every summer, basically, where we bring in junior high and high school kids, basically, and give them a nice big challenge in terms of how to prevent, if you will, a release of some information that you didn't want to have released. And so it's a really healthy way, I think, to encourage people to think about cybersecurity and really start early and get people really in that practice and thinking about what they're up to. The other thing I wanted to comment on was really in terms of the development of the workforce and the skill set. Much like many fields, scientific fields and engineering fields, really computer science really is a dynamic field that changes very quickly, and so really kind of a continual refresh, if you will, for the workforce. You know, at Argonne, I would think a good example is really machine learning. It's really something new in terms of our scientific research, and getting a scientist or an engineer moving away from what she or he has done for 20 years to think about machine learning and actually letting the data speak to you more freely rather than driving your thought process based upon your experience, your legacy, if you will, and trusting, moving away from your intuition is a big challenge. And so really reaching out to them to really help them understand real time, if you will, as they learn how to really use machine learning and other new developments is really important. It really, I think, quickly shows benefits in terms of the ability to show how a tumor might respond, for example, to drug treatment. So machine learning's got great potential. It's another area that I think that requires some additional training and education.
Thank you, Paul. And I think you both touched in some important points. We talked here about the effects of big data. The fact is that information is available to everyone, and you must be careful with security because the answer to some of these questions may be all online. It's very possible that the person would know a lot about you without you knowing. And they talk a lot about social engineering and the way people pretend they are someone or they crack some of these questions, that the security questions, and I think that's a very important point, the security around all of this. We also talked about the lack of skills. In Brazil, we were doing some partnerships with some of these universities like Worcester to help us get a pipeline of resources that we would have as there is sometimes quick demand for some of these skills. So maybe Mr. Bogdan could comment on the role of academia as we talk about technology, as we talk about big data, machine learning. How do you see complementing what Paul and Elizabeth mentioned?
So big data means high volume, high velocity, and high variety. So this offers an opportunity and a challenge. Now, mankind has been collecting data for hundreds or thousands of years. Make a guess. Who's voting for hundreds of years? Who's voting for thousands of years? So do you know what the biggest data set was about 2,000 years ago? The biggest data set was the planetary data. So no, when people were navigating on ships, they needed to know where the planets were because they didn't have GPS, so they were locating themselves as looking at the planets. And so 2,000 years ago, there were data sets that were collected about the planets, thinking that the Earth is at the center of the universe, which was the Ptolemy theory. And for hundreds of years afterwards, people kept collecting the data sets on planets and realized that actually the data was kind of wrong because they were assuming something at the beginning which was wrong, right? And then Copernicus came and said, no, actually the sun is at the center of the universe. And so the data was matching a little bit better what the model was. And so people were navigating better, which was making a big difference between winners and losers in terms of commerce, who was able to get new markets by navigating better. So the captains who had the good data sets were navigating better than the captains who didn't have the good data sets. And then Kepler and so on, but I won't get into that historic details. So big data sets are a top priority for business nowadays. It does make the difference between winners and losers. So you can also think about the ability of getting results from marketing investments. Any company does that, right? Or getting incremental margins from pricing and promotion decisions, or incremental sales from better supply chains and management decisions. So every company can use data, provided that they understand what data they want to use, what questions they want to ask. And so what the challenges the companies face is what data they want to use. Is it the supply chain? Is it the transaction data? Is the performance data? But a lot of times, it's not the data that they have. It's the data that they could get if they know what the questions is to ask, right? So I'll give you an example. We worked for an insurance company. They were making car insurance. And they came to us and they said, we really want to figure out who are the risky drivers. And they gave us their data for the past 10 years, and it was a large company. And they had lots of data, and of course, a lot of data was, we had to clean the data and so on. That's a different story. But we looked at the data and trying to figure out what are the best predictors for risky behavior of drivers. And we looked at where the car was located and what was the age of the driver and what was the best predictor. We had lots of, a big table with lots of columns of different data. And it wasn't the location, it wasn't the age. I mean, yes, it was, but not the best predictor. The best predictor was something that actually the company had as a column there, but never looked at it, and that was the credit rating of the person. The credit rating tells you how much debt a person has and how good they are in paying back to the bank the loan that they have, right? And so it turns out that, which was a remarkable thing, and our students figured that out, that the responsible drivers are also the people who are responsible in paying back their loans, right? No one would have thought about that, and the insurance company was not looking at that. They had it because it was part of a form that people were filling out. But yeah, so the company applied our strategy, and they saved $6 million the following year. So it's really important to understand what data to look at, and if you need data from some other sources, nowadays there's you can get data from everywhere. The second point is how you use the data, and that's where you need the talent, and that's where you need the mathematical skills, the computer science skills, the statistical skills, and you need to hire the people who have those skills in order to analyze your data. And then the third piece, which is non-negligible, is how you have to be prepared as a company to change your business model once you have the results of that analysis. So now, how do you change the culture in the company when the company has been around for a number of years and has done things in a certain way? It's always difficult. And I won't get into that example, but we had the company and we told them that they were doing something wrong and they didn't want to change it because of cultural reasons, and they went bankrupt in 2 years. And so it's a management challenge, and it's a risk that any company has to assume. And that is, once you figure out that you need to change your business model, you really have to do it. And sometimes it's easier to hire someone from the outside and supplement your team with newcomers who have a different perspective. And that's something that everybody needs to do. So now the thing that we're doing is the training of the people to have the analytical skills to help companies analyze data, and also to figure out how to encrypt things well. So I'll tell you another story. Some of my colleagues a year and a half ago were able to break the Amazon cloud. And they did that by setting up a server in the cloud and figuring out when the server was accessing the memory that was giving the RSA key, encryption keys. And then they were able to figure out by timing stuff what the keys are. And so then they let Amazon know. And there was a patch put together, and then my colleagues wrote a paper on that, and that was funded by the National Science Foundation with $500,000. And so they were very successful to do that. So no data is really safe, so that everybody needs to be aware that someone will figure out how to get into that data if they really want to. But what is happening nowadays is that and we have a program for cybersecurity that when you develop software, you have to think about the cybersecurity of that piece of software that you're developing. The cybersecurity shouldn't come after you develop the software. It should be done while you are developing the software. So we have a program also funded by the National Science Foundation called CyberCore, where we train students in cybersecurity and data analytics, and then they work for the government for a number of years to pay back. So it's all paid by the government, but then they have to go back and take a government job for a couple of years.
Thank you, Mr. Bogdan. I think, again, reinforcing the importance of skills, while we have some tools that help make sense of the data, building the right models, having the statisticians, the mathematics is key for really taking the right conclusions. So I think it's a very, very important point. Maybe we change a bit. We all talk about skills, we talk about the models, but all of this processing power, memory, disk, all of this will demand energy. So maybe it's a question for you, Paul. It's how do we deal with this demand? And in your work, if you're doing analytics and use of big data to look for new sources of energy to couple with this increased demand, technology will be everywhere. We have sensors everywhere. We have data that is getting bigger every year. How do we handle this energy demand?
I think there are a number of ways, really, that allow us to address the challenge you're speaking of. And one really is looking, of course, for more efficient ways for processing information. We had a discussion before the session on grid computing. Certainly that offers, if you will, a chance to operate at a more efficient level by utilizing existing systems across a wider network than really concentrating capabilities at one location. Certainly is an application that could bring greater efficiencies. Advanced architectures is another possibility in terms of really how we process information. There's a lot of discussion now. Are we at the end of Moore's Law and what becomes following that in terms of advancement and in terms of architectures for machines? And certainly quantum computing is talked about a lot, as well as neuromorphic computing. I think those are all good things, and also in terms of development of algorithms and being really efficient in how we're asking a machine to perform an operation. It really requires advanced mathematics and really continued study in that field. So I think there are great opportunities to really drive efficiencies in terms of how we compute, and also in terms of development of applications, I would say, is another great way to think about gaining efficiencies. In terms of energy technologies, themselves, I would mention some work that we have underway at Argonne. We took on a grand challenge a few years ago associated with energy storage, which is really development of advanced batteries, if you will. Many of us carry phones that have lithium-ion batteries. Thinking beyond that technology into perhaps what we call beyond lithium-ion advanced technologies, really, that allow us to store more energy in a battery at reduced cost is really what it was all about, and looking to reduce the cost by 5 times, if you will, a fifth the cost, if you will, and 5 times the energy storage basically in a battery. And one of the things we were able to do relates to the topic here in terms of big data was establish what we call the electrolyte discovery laboratory. Batteries are made up of an anode and a cathode electrolyte, and a lot of different, if you will, advanced chemistries, a lot of electrochemistry really to be explored in terms of what the potential is. And so we established what we call the Electrolyte Discovery Laboratory at Argonne. It really looked at over 100,000 different potential elements and a combination of elements, different chemistries, and identified 23,000 that have potential to really enhance the battery that we have in our pocket, if you will, associated with that phone, or that we might use in a tablet or a laptop. And really that came through, if you will, very careful evaluation, modeling and simulation, as well as really some just excellent work in terms of visualizing the results of that. So lots of potential, I think, really, and those are just a few small examples, a few comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe we get back to Brazil. And you mentioned about the industry 4.0, you mentioned about digital transformation, things that Stefanini is engaged in. How do you see big data and machine learning helping with this challenge? Everyone wants to be digital, wants to transform themselves. How do you see this technology helping with this digital transformation, Ailtom?
We see a lot of opportunities for industries today, manufacturers, to transform their products in something that can collaborate more with their business. So examples is like you can transform your final product in something that can be used as a service and generating recurrent revenues for you. But the most important thing is how you can get more information about your products, like to predict maintenance, to collect more information and data about how that specific product works, and helping your users to get more benefits from your products. So here in Brazil, we are working with focus on these digital transformations for industries in order to help them to be much more efficient. So this is the projects where we are focusing here in the industries. to transform the production line, transforming products, and to become much more efficient at all. This is one part. In terms of service digitalization as well, so how can you transform certain kind of services in order to get much more efficiency from that? Public services is one area, which is in Brazil, we can and we are working a lot in order to transform that. All these things has been generated a lot of different data that has been collected and analyzed, correlated in order to give answers, to give more informations to improve again and again those services. So this is some projects where Stefanini is putting more efforts. And talking about machine learning. So today we are applying cognitive technologies. We are using technologies like Watson from IBM in order to generate different services, more services. We have our own solutions as well that we are using in order to collect other or to transform services, collecting more data, analyzing that, and developing new ones. So I think the future of this is based on artificial intelligence, cognitive technologies that can be applied to generate new solutions. And talking about artificial intelligence, we are not saying that this is new. We have applied artificial intelligence in many different products in the past. So we have spoken about that. So many years ago, more than 20 years ago, we developed a machine to take decisions, investment decisions, based on the market behaviors, based on a lot of rules that could be analyzed, creating news, taking decision over the data. But today, we have more technology to use applying with artificial intelligence, which is cognitive technologies. So I believe that in the future, machines will be taking decisions itself, helping you to move to the next step. So like learning about yourself, so your behavior. So I can, using artificial intelligence or cognitive technologies, I can learn how you like to be attended in certain services, and helping you to move to next steps, eliminating some steps. For example, a simple example, we can have your behavior when you are, we are buying an air ticket in order to go to a certain place, and that specific machine is intelligence enough to give you the best seat in the airplane, make your check-in automatically, or many things, many decisions that can be taken for this machine, helping you to eliminate a lot of steps. This is a very, very simple example about how artificial intelligence or cognitive technologies can help you to improve your way of life and improve services, reducing costs, eliminating time. So you will be able in the future to avoid wasting time in many kind of services using that. So this is something that we are already applying here in Brazil, and that can be applied in many other areas.
Thank you, Ailton. And I think, again, you touched in some of the use case for big data. In your first part, you mentioned about knowing your customer, what we call like the 360-degree view of the customer, and that there is more data outside than you have inside the company. And that's very important, because companies realized that a few years ago. I remember we were doing an engagement with the bank, and the bank said, well, all I know about my customers, I know the address, and by the way, he opened this account like 20 years ago, and I know very little about what they do, what sports, how educated they are, where they travel. And he said, I need to reconcile the information that is available outside, because there is a lot of insights that I could take from this that could help me offer customized services, and the information is all there. So it's like I have 5% inside my company, and if I mine on the social media and everything else, I could offer a much better service. And one of the applications that we have a lot of demand for machine learning, artificial intelligence, is customer service, because normally the call centers don't have, the operators don't have access to the information, so the quality of the service is not good. You spend a lot of time on a phone call because the time it takes to gather this different source. So I think there is a lot of space for improvement in customer service, in offering, cross-selling. Amazon is a great example of how much machine learning there is behind their algorithms for providing you suggestions on the next best offer. It's another typical use case we have for big data. So I think you touched some very important points and some good use case we have for big data, not only in Brazil, but in the rest of the world. Elizabeth, when we were discussing outside, you mentioned you were an early user of technology, and in fact, you adopted some of the things like social media very early. Could you help us understand how you're using this on the university and some of this technology, the difference it makes for the education field?
Yeah. I was an early adopter of electronic mail, and then just continued to evolve around electronic communications, and very early adopted Twitter, and then Facebook, and now Instagram is really my favorite because I just love sharing images. But I have the particular challenge, being the president of a globally located university, to build community. And that's my desire, is to build community among the students on our different campuses, and the faculty and staff, and the communities that we serve in each of those locations. Because I really believe that at the intersection of technology and humanity, which is very much what we've been talking about, the world's most pressing issues, whether it's issues of health, poverty, empowerment of girls and women, security, all the kinds of things that the world wrestles with. The intersection of technology and humanity across national borders in a worldwide community where we share solutions and enact those solutions and share intelligence with one another is ultimately what will have the impact that we seek to have.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And maybe this is a good link for a question to a poll when we talk about the use of new technology. You mentioned some work you were doing with edge computing and grid computing. How do you see this? So we start moving into the future. Where do you see the technology going? So could you comment on this, please?
Yes, very exciting work we're doing associated with what we call the Internet of Things, the Array of Things, if you will, working with funding from the National Science Foundation, also with the University of Chicago. We're deploying, if you will, one of the largest, what we call urban sensors, over 500, platform of over 500 sensors across the city of Chicago. Chicago is not quite as large as Sao Paulo, but it's a fair-sized city in the U.S. And certainly very excited. And it'll collect data, if you will, in terms of the conditions, the environment, and the conditions, real time, very useful for the city to really help it manage infrastructure and services that are being provided and really improve the quality of life, we hope, for all citizens in the city of Chicago. We're bringing edge computing to this, and that deploying those sensors is one thing, but also putting enough hardware and software on each sensor so that it actually do the preliminary analysis of that information real time as it's collected. It really is a step forward in terms of what's possible these days. And so really to eliminate the shipment of large data sets across some distance to really do the computing at the sensor or the platform is really an exciting development in that space, something we're very excited about. And again, the work is supported by the National Science Foundation in the U.S., and we're doing it in partnership with the University of Chicago. It's a nice example of a very practical application of an advanced technology, a new technology that will change our everyday lives and really do some nice things for us as well.
Let me also give another example. In the city of Boston, they decided a couple of years ago to crowdsource the roadside repair. And they developed an app that now if you turn it on when you start driving your car, because of the accelerometers in the phone, they can detect the holes in the road. And so you can get, the city can get this map of the city with all the streets, and they see where there are bumps in the road, and then they can go and fix it instead of sending out a team to actually inspect. Of course, the data has some noise in it because you can drop your phone and that's a false, right, alert. And so they had to actually figure out how to deal with that. But that's an interesting application of how everybody, you can crowdsource this thing. You just let the people in Boston help you figure out where the challenges are. The other interesting thing, and there's a company in the US who does that, they are developing sensors to place in homes. Now we're talking about healthcare for elderly. And so it's proven that if you keep elderly in their own homes longer, then in terms of healthcare, it's a savings. And so you don't pay, as a government, you don't pay as much as putting them in a special facility. And so they place these sensors all around the house, from the bed to the bathroom, to the kitchen, and so on and so forth. And they can monitor the activity in the house. And then with artificial intelligence, you actually can understand what the pattern for that person is, because every person has a different pattern of living. And then you can figure out when the person stays too long in the bed, or doesn't eat, doesn't go to the kitchen, or doesn't go to the bathroom as often as, and then you send a nurse, not every day, but you send a nurse in to check when there's a problem. And so that's another interesting thing on how you can use data, and you can use the sensors that everybody's nowadays developing to collect the data that you need in order to assess the state of health of someone.
Thank you, Bogdan, for this interesting example in Boston. I didn't know this one. Some people do not realize that Waze is a big data algorithm. When you subscribe, you are allowing to provide your information. So it has a good network of sensors all over the world. And then the algorithm can easily calculate what are the speed, where the traffic is. But it's an interesting example that I think we use every day, and people do not necessarily realize. And sometimes the solution to a problem is in things like that. You have to make the technology available and then get data from a higher number of people. In machine learning, we frequently see this, where we make the technology available, for example, for people to tag pictures, this sort of things, or for use in translator, and then we use the feedback we get from these interactions to kind of teach the machine. So I think this sort of crowdsourcing of people to help teach, it is something that it is important when we talk about big data machine learning. We have a few minutes left, and maybe it's good for us to do one last round with the panelists. And what I would like to get a perspective from you is the future. Is how do you see the future? So if you could have each one of us kind of finalize with some comments you may have, some final comments, and also where do you see this going from your perspective, either on the academia, in terms of the Department of Energy, in terms of your experience with Stefanini in Brazil. Let's think about 5-10 years. You mentioned it's hard to predict technology these days, even on a short horizon. But if you were to abstract using what we know, how do you see this going 5 or more years? And maybe we can start with you, Ailtom, and then we pass through the panelists.
I think we need to think in our lifestyle, to think about the jobs that we'll have in the future. It's very difficult. The future is unpredictable. However, we need to get these examples we have today in our life and project how the life will be in the future. So I'll have cars in the future. I'll need to drive my car, or I can have benefits of services, many services that can be used to move people from one point to another point. So how it will be. So this is something that will come step by step around this technology. The only thing that I know that technology we have today is now constructing the future or the foundation for the future of the humanity. Many things will be changed. Services, jobs, probably in a near future, you don't need to have a job, a fixed job, but something that can make you living better, receiving some money, taking some jobs to be done, because you can live much better than we live today. So technology, I think, is changing the world dramatically from now on. I think we are living a new age of technology. This is the only thing that we can say, because the future now, for the next 5 years or 10 years, I think is unpredictable.
So I think we are at a phase when we're digitizing and collecting data from everything right now. We are digitizing the human being. We're digitizing our metrics, our weight, our sleep, our food intake, and so on. We're digitizing our anatomy by imaging, MRIs, CAT scan, X-rays, and so on. We're digitizing our biology, sequencing the genome. But we are not connecting them at this point very well. So the next step will be connecting everything that we have digitized in a much more meaningful way, right? And the same thing not only applies to humans, but also to cities. We will have, our washer will talk to the grid and figure out when the grid is not busy, the electric grid, and start washing the dishes or washing the clothes when there is capacity in the grid, right? And appliances will talk to each other. And transportation will be adaptive. Now, you don't, right now, if we want to take a bus, we go at the time when the bus, we know that the bus comes, and we take the bus. Well, the bus maybe, the next thing will be that the bus will know when we're there, and the bus will show up. And so we'll need more buses on one line than the other line. It's not a prescribed thing, it's an on-demand thing, right? And so things will start talking in cities. As we collect more data, we'll be able to do that. And so in 2020, we'll have more than 40 zettabytes. we as people get in one day more information than the people in the 16th century got during their full life. And so that creates an opportunity. There are also some challenges, but it's always good to have opportunities. So I think now if we understand how to combine data, how to use it, how to mine it, and then how to protect it. And also the other thing that we haven't talked about, but that's for a different workshop or different conference. Now, what's the legislation for all this data that we are producing? So it's a wonderful time to live in, so it's good.
I'll share that optimism, that I think that while we have spent quite a bit of time talking today about the threats and the risks that need to be managed, the reason they need to be managed is because the potential and power to use those data, both the structured and the unstructured, what comes to us and what we reveal about ourselves through emails and social media and behaviors with one another. The potential for truly personalized experiences, as you described, whether it's medicine or health or how we manage day-to-day life, or the larger, broader issues that vex our nations and our world, lie in the complexity and the variability and the volume of the data and our ability to manage it. And so if we have confidence in ourselves and our ability to learn how to do that and to be smarter about it, the world can be a better place.
Not sure I can add much, actually, at this point. I think Elizabeth really did a nice job there in terms of summarizing the opportunity and the optimism. I would comment in terms of outcomes. I think really a couple of things come to mind, and that is our lives are going to be different, and the future is going to be here sooner than we might imagine. And just in terms of the technologies that we have at hand today, I think about transportation and certainly electric vehicles and self-driving or automated vehicles, I think, are just around the corner in terms of really common use. I also think of the big challenge in terms of health and finding a cure, if you will, to Alzheimer and finding better treatment options, if you will, for cancer, and also things like the Zika virus. So I think the world is really full of a lot of great challenges that big data can really help us address and work towards resolution and really improving the quality of life.
Thank you. I think with this we can conclude the session. Would like to thank the organizers and the panelists for the opportunity here to participate on this debate. It was very interesting for me. I would like to thank you for being here and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.